right, we are live. The Team Osceola, we've got a crowded house, a full house. We're the Fab Five, not the Fab Four today. But my name is Pat Burnham. I'll be the host of Seminole Sidelines throughout every Sunday during the course of the season. And of course, guys, I am joined by Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, Osceola editor Bob Ferrante, Osceola senior writer Kurt Weiler, and Osceola football analyst and former Florida State center Mark Salva. Guys, welcome.
Pat,
we made it.
Yes, we finally here. What's that, Mark?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, it is a Happy New Year. We are almost exactly a week to the hour from Florida State kicking off against LSU in Camping World Stadium in Orlando at 7:30 in a matchup of top 10 teams. But we've got about 25 practices to talk about. We've got a full team to talk about. We've got a season to talk about. We've got a lot of subjects to cover. So we're going to jump right into it. Guys, we got a chance to see Florida State finish practice yesterday. Fall camp is done. They closed it out in Doak Campbell Stadium. The players will have tomorrow off, and then they start LSU week on Tuesday. And Bob, Jerry, and Kurt, we've been at most of the practice. One of us has missed a day or two here or there. We have plenty of breakdown of position groups and of podcasts from earlier in camp. If you have not seen our position group preview, we ran those in July and August. Please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. But we are going to hit on just about every position group. But, guys, Bob and Kurt and Jerry, I'm going to start with you guys, and we'll go in that order, Bob, Kurt, and Jerry. We're coming out of about 25 days worth of practice. What is your impressions of this football team, offensively, defensively? And I'll start with this question to all three of you. Is Florida State a better football team than you thought it was on August 2nd, or has more challenges than you thought that it might have coming out of fall camp? Bob, I'll start with you.
I think Florida State has the capability to score more points than last year, and that was a pretty efficient offense in 2022, one of the best in the country. You look at the height, you look at the matchup, the matchups from wide receiver and tight end. You've got 1,000-yard-ish running back coming back and Trey Benson, and an experienced quarterback, Jordan Travis. The offensive line feels like it's a little bit deeper than last year too. So I think every position group feels pretty good. Some question marks about backup quarterback. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But the questions for Florida State, I think overall on offense, far lessened than in past years.
Kurt?
Yeah, I think they're better than I thought they would be coming into preseason and than last year's team. I mean, I think we thought Keon Coleman was good. We'd seen the highlight film, but seeing him in person, that dude is the truth. And no offense to Pokey Wilson, who was a great Seminole, but Keon Coleman's an upgrade. We saw Brayton Fisk in action this preseason when he was sidelined in the spring, and he's been very impressive. I mean, we'll find out pretty quick, and that's what's great about how this season lines up. There's not going to be much waiting for the asterisk you sometimes get over, well, that was impressive, but they were playing a nobody in week one. They're playing as somebody. But I definitely think they're a little better than I thought they were coming in, and I had pretty high hopes coming in.
Yeah, so you're right. They are playing as somebody for their opener this year. You're right about that. Jerry, kind of your thoughts on, what did this team meet or exceed your expectations in fall camp?
I think it exceeded them. You always worry about at the end of a camp, you're kind of beat up, and you're ready to see the team against somebody else. But I would say the thing that has impressed me probably the most is beyond what they said was the team is the chemistry is good, the morale's good, and this is a real football team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And listen, I think they are better than they were, than I thought they were going to be on offense. To Kurt's point, Keon Coleman is everything that we thought he might be and more. You did not, obviously, we've not seen him in person. Even we've talked about, I know Des Hill could have an impact on this season. I think they're deeper at receiver than they've ever have been, and I think they certainly will be when they're fully healthy. We also see a guy like Dre Jacobs, who we think is going to have an impact, and we'll talk about him this year. I think Jordan Travis has had his best fall camp that he's been here. I think he's going to have we'll talk about that a little bit later. So to me, the offense was much better than I thought it was going, and I thought it was going to be good to begin with. I think I do have some more questions about the defense, depth at defensive end. Who's the fourth guy? I don't think they know who that fourth guy is yet. Who's the fourth and fifth guys at linebacker? And then you've got some young guys that are going to have to play some significant time in the secondary. That will prove challenges against high caliber play callers who know set up mismatches. But I think this team is probably when we get into floor and ceiling. What's the floor and ceiling for this team? I had a hard time finding a floor. It was much easier to talk myself into a ceiling. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But Florida State offensively, I thought better than I thought coming into camp. Defense, I've still got questions there. Now, Mark, you have a different perspective. You read our reports. You watch our reports. I'm sure we're not the only source for your Florida State information, being a former player. But just from your view, you have more of a balcony view. You have not been at practice, but you do get to read a lot of things. And you talk to a lot of your teammates. Former teammates? What are your thoughts from Nashville?
So, reading between the lines is what I have to do, being because of my proximity. And the thing that really sticks out to me is that it seems to me that this team is a player-led team as opposed to a coach-led team. And, and I think that transition happened somewhere towards the end of last year. And what I might mean by that is that the standards of performance are usually upheld by the coaches, right? Especially with a young team, a team that's trying to build a culture. The coaches are the ones that have to drive the standards, have to drive the practices, have to keep the energy up. And from everything I hear and read is that the players have kind of taken that on, and that our best players are the leaders of this team. And to me, that is a winning formula going into the year. That's exactly what you want going into the year.
Yeah, and I think we'd all agree. I think we noticed that this was a team last year that was developing player leaders, and we continue to see a team that looks like it enjoys competing against each other and enjoys playing with each other on both sides of the ball. We see repetitively, I know Kurt and Bob and Jerry have all mentioned about how these guys help teach each other up, whether it's guys on the same side of the ball or an offensive lineman telling a defensive lineman, well, this is how I successfully blocked you, or so forth and so on. So I do think that's true, and I do think that listen. We've said it all the time. You hear a lot of coaches say a lot about culture, but culture is a real thing under Mike Norvell in Tallahassee, and I agree with you there. All right, so let's do a little bit of an offensive overview. And Kurt and Bob, I'm kind of going to rely on you guys for the skill positions. You guys spend a lot more time watching Jordan Travis and the quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. I kind of go back to the heavier side of the field where I belong. So just tell us a little bit about we're going to get into Jordan Travis a little bit later, but let's just talk about get a little bit more detail about the wealth of talent Florida State has offensively at this wide receiver, running back, tight end. And then, Mark, I've got a question for you about how people are going to defend all this, but I want to hear Bob and Mark kind of break down the skill positions Bob and Kurt, excuse me, a lot of faces on this call tonight.
Pretty one, too.
Yes, you're right about that. All right, Bob.
Yeah, I think the thing to me is what personnel groupings can you use? I think the obvious answer is they can use a ton of different personnel groupings, multiple tight ends. You can go 3 wide. You can also go 2 and 3 tight ends. I mean, you can truly mix and match if you wanted to in the middle of drives, but within a quarter. So the possibilities, I think this kind of opens up Mike Norvell's playbook going back to Memphis a little bit, where he's got just that versatile talent, especially at tight end, where, yeah, when you see 2 tight ends out on the field, you really don't know what's coming at you if you're a defense, whether that's run or pass. Guys, I don't want to be like in the moment and say this is the best wide receiver group or tight end group since, this year. I think there's more mismatches out there on the field of a wide receiver tight end combined group than we've seen in some time. It's just they're going to throw so much at defenses that I think that's what's going to be fun to watch. and it's what's going to lead to points on the board and wins.
Yeah, I think this has the chance to be, if things break right, if they stay healthy and all, probably, the best offense that we've seen at Florida State since 2013. I think that's kind of it has everything you're looking at, and a very experienced line, more than 5 offensive linemen, which I think is a big deal. That's more the big boys. I'm getting into your territory there. But yeah, and just when you bring back a guy like Trey Benson, who felt like he really found his stride down the stretch of the season, not only do you bring back a guy like Johnny Wilson, who kind of when those high pointing balls that he at 6'7" gets thrown his way, when those are on point, they're kind of indefensible. Like, what do you do when a 6'7" guy gets thrown a jump ball like that? And not only bring him back, but you add someone like we talked about with Keon Coleman, where I think Jaheim Bell said it best early this preseason: can't double everybody. In fact, you could probably only really double one person. So it is a good luck type situation if you're playing man, if you're playing zone. Pending self-inflicted mistakes, it is a quandary to defend everything this offense is going to throw at you, especially with how Mike likes to move people around in his offense.
All right, Mark, I want to ask you about the things, as a former coach, about the things they can do from a personnel standpoint, because if you have a 11 personnel group setting with Jaheim Bell is what the defense may think be lining up as a unit tight end, but can line up in the slot, line up in the running back. You can actually think it's 11, it's 20. They could think it's 11, it's empty. And then obviously you've got the fact that you could put 2 tight ends in the game and have one of them line up as ace back, one of them's in unit. But anyway, how will defenses look to do that? And I've got to ask you this question: with the wealth of talent that Florida State has, you've still got to account for Jordan Travis if you're opposing defense. How can you play with 5 in the box against Florida State, and how can you play with 7 in the box against Florida State?
And that's the beauty of what Mike does. Not only because of the personnel that we have in the skill positions, but because of the willingness and the commitment to run the football with the tailbacks, even with design runs with Jordan in select periods of the game, right? And so, the first thing a defensive coordinator wants to do before he makes his call is he wants to know who's in the game. And when they scheme and game plan all week long, they make their calls, base their calls on who's in the game, because usually there's tendencies there, right? There's tendencies with, hey, if they got 2 tight ends in the game, 1 back, 2 receivers, then they like to do this set of plays. If they're this, they like to line up like this. With the thing that makes the difference for us is the tweeners that we have, right? You got Jaheim Bell, who can line up as a tight end, as a running back, as a slot guy. You have Keon Coleman, who's opposite Johnny Wilson. If you're going to play 2 safeties over the top for both of those guys, that means you're light in the box. Oh, we can run the ball. And I'm sure we'll have that. You got guys like Ja'Kai Douglas or Lawrence Toafili, who can be a running back or a slot receiver. So who's in the game makes it really difficult for a defense to decide how we're going to line up and what we're going to do. And Mike is really, really good at mixing that up, not only that, mixing formations and shifting and motioning. So there's so many problems that this offense can present from a personnel standpoint, from a play calling standpoint, and from an alignment standpoint, that defenses have to be simple in terms of their scheme early, just so their guys know where to line up and what gaps they have. And that makes it easier for us, because what ends up happening inevitably is that as you go through the course of the game, especially early, you might hit on something. You might hit on a personnel group or in a formation that they're not prepared for, that presents a really unique mismatch that we can take advantage of. And that's going to happen. I guarantee it's going to happen, because you can't get ready for everything.
Nope.
Right? And so when those situations happen, what does the defense do? Line up in base. That's what they do. Yep. They line up in base.
Cover 2.
Cover two, light box, right? That's what they're going to do. And so that's why, Kurt said, you got to pick your poison. And if you play light, we can run it. If you want to stop the run, we can throw it. And if you want to play man, we can run the quarterback. Any number of, it's really it's an embarrassment of riches is what it is.
Well, what's crazy is it makes Jordan. Listen, we've seen Jordan has got. He's a tremendous passer. We've seen him put throws on receivers in camp. We have, NFL type throws, guys. We've seen him some really tight boxes, and listen, I think he's going to have his best year as a passer. I think and because of all the talent around him, he's probably never been more dangerous as a runner because of all the things Mark just said. So I think Jordan's going to have, it would be wrong to call it a breakout year because we already know who he is. He's one of the best players in America, but I think he's got a chance to have his best year as a Florida State quarterback. And we'll talk about where that may put him later on this year if he does have the season we think he could have and this team has the season we think he could have. But yes, I think it's fascinating to see how people are going to defend Florida State. I don't see very many games where they're probably not scoring 40 or more points. Jerry, you've seen a lot of football. Just your overall thoughts on the potential power of this offense.
Yeah, I think the whole key is what Mark was just talking about there. How do you, as a defensive coordinator, find tendencies in that huddle? I mean, you really don't. And that it just poses a big problem. And I think you can dictate to a defense because of that.
All right. Well, all right. So we know this offense it's as deep as it's been on the offensive line. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But we know that there's mostly strengths on this offense, but Kurt, Bob, and Jerry, y'all have been at every practice. What is one question mark or one concern? I think you all three going to give me the same answer. But what is your one question mark or concern heading into the 2023 season opener against LSU?
I mean, about the only offensive question for me, and it's a question that pretty much every team deals with every season, is what happens if your starting quarterback gets hurt. Yep. There would be a pretty big drop off. We talked about it kind of on our roundtable type thing about a week and a half ago.
Yep.
The drop off is steep, and truthfully, your second best quarter on a consistent basis may have been the true freshman Brock Glenn, and that doesn't speak incredibly well to that room. But we barely dealt with it last year. Here's hoping. I mean, it is 12 games, however many games of smooth sailing for Jordan Travis. It's entirely possible that concern never comes to light.
That's true. All right, so Bob and Jerry, do you agree it's the backup quarterback is the biggest concern on defense, on offense?
Yeah, that's
all right.
Good mind.
All right, Bob, you too?
Yeah.
All right, so you guys –
I have an opinion on this. So
okay, go ahead, Mark.
No, well, I mean, look, we just talked about how much skill we have. And I think for a majority of our schedule, we have enough skill in a senior veteran offensive line that can handle most of the games. Where that would come into play would be in a tight ball game, or one of the better teams on our schedule. And you know what? That may or may not happen. To me, overall, something that we were not great at last year was really short yardage offense. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. I like to see us knock guys off the football and get those and not even worry about it. Those worried me to death last year. And I think if there's an area of improvement that we can do as overall as an offense as a team, it's just to dictate our will in those situations and not having to have Jordan Travis scramble for a first down on 4th and inches. That it's a no-brainer. And that we haven't had that. That's the one place I think we can really improve.
Right, so
I think you'll like Jeremiah Byers, Mark.
Yeah, I think you will too.
Huh?
I said I think you'll like Jeremiah Byers.
Oh, I know. I already do. Look, he may be the best 63 since
you. So that's right. I forgot that was passed on down from one great to another. All right, we should have been paying attention to that, but we did not. They only give that to studs at Florida State. 63. All right, so I'm going to go back to the quarterback question and quickly, unless you've got a reason for it or you feel like you need to explain yourself. If it's not Jordan Travis, Bob, who are you throwing in the ball game?
Tight ball game, Tate Rodemaker. If you have a full week, I would keep a lid on it. Media can't say boo. You can turn it over to Brock Glenn. Why not?
Kurt?
I think Bob nailed it.
Jerry?
Yeah, I would agree. I think in a tight ball game, or not necessarily in a tight ball game, if you got the game on, you're winning the game and you have an injury, I think Rodemaker is totally capable of winning. He proved it at Louisville.
Yep.
If you were going to have a quarterback out for some period of time, then I think you might take a look at it'd be a real competition. And Brock Glenn might be your answer.
Mark hit the nail on the head, though. I think any of these guys, you want the guy who makes the least mistakes because of all the talent you have. Because with this schedule, I would say you can have a backup quarterback who can get you to a bowl, or it won't be the same type of season. Expectations would like immediately change drastically, but like you can somewhat keep the season on the rails with one of those guys. But it's about who makes the least mistakes. Let those skill position guys you have do work.
Well, as Brock said when we interviewed him the other day, it is a comfort level knowing that if he was pressed into meaningful action, which I think he may be at some point this year. Well, any playing time for a first-time quarterback is meaningful, right? But listen, I think that they feel comfortable with the guys that they have, including the offensive line and obviously the skill guys. But listen, I go back and forth on Tate and Brock from practice to practice, so I think you're probably right. How much time, Bob, do you have to prepare for it? If it's an injury in a game or for whatever reason Jordan hasn't come out for a play or two, even if his helmet comes off, right? I think it's probably Tate unless you've got a week to prepare. But we all think that there might be something a little special to Brock, right? I mean, we've all identified something that, he carries himself a little bit different, seems to have a little bit different temperament. Obviously, we notice how they all have good arms. I'm not going to say great arms. All have very good arms, but the ball seems to pop out of his hand a little bit. He's got a little swagger to him. So I think it's going to be interesting should they find themselves in that situation. But you've got Tate, who's proven that he can come in and be more than admirable in his job. What he did at Louisville was outstanding, and really, and what was a very important game last year. And of course, as he has said, it's his fourth year. He should be progressing, and he's got expectations for himself. So, but I hope you're right. I hope we're watching 13 go crazy all year, and we don't have to answer this question except in mop-up time against some of these teams at Florida State. We'll most certainly put some butt whoopings on, and Mark just knocked on wood, and I think I'm going to knock on wood too, as I've got a wooden desk I'm sitting in front of. All right, so we've kind of covered the offense. We all think it's going to be really, really good, particularly when it's fully healthy, and we got the same concerns, I think. All right, so guys, let's move to defense. We've heard Adam Fuller say in a press conference about a week and a half ago that he thinks this defense can be as good as any defense in the country. I think he might have an argument when it comes to his starting front four and some depth there at defensive tackle. The further back you go in the defense, I think the more questions you have. But Jerry, you love watching the defense. You pay attention to the front and the linebackers probably more than anybody else at practice. So just talk about your what you see as the strengths of this defense and what you're worried about going into this 2023 season.
We went into this year expecting to have Darrell Jackson, and we expected to have a lot of Fabian Lovett. So your expectations are based on those guys. Now, what we may not have Jackson? It looks like we won't have Jackson. Lovett, is practicing. He's been out of football a while now. I don't know how many reps he'll get in that LSU game. Just see how his body does in game action. Braden Fisk is the next man up, in my opinion. I think Braden is something special. And
I think Braden is the man. I don't think he's the next man up. I think he's a man all of his own accord.
Yeah, so I feel really good about him. We like Farmer. And then really after that, you got Ray, who has experience, but there's some mysteries. We thought of the depth, but I see a drop-off, not necessarily in ability or talent, but just in game experience. And so I'm those two interior guys, it just depends who's available to us on game day. It's going to be hot down there. You're going to have a mobile quarterback where you have a rotation to keep people healthy. And moving. And so we're going to test that depth a little bit down there. You asked my opinion, and that would be my concern. I'm not worried about it, but we're going to get a good test. And then at linebacker, I tell you, I like our linebackers better than, I did in last year. I think we got Bethune is healthy. Tatum Bethune's healthy. I think Deloach is a better player than we give him credit for. And you've got Lundy, who's, I think, improving as time has moved on. And the Graham kid, Otto Graham, I like a lot. I think he's
Omar Graham.
Yeah, Omar. I want to call him Otto.
I think Otto played for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Jim Otto.
Yeah. So Jim Otto played for the
Raiders.
The Raiders.
No, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Otto Graham was a great baseball player at one time, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, hey, that movie about Otto was pretty good that came out on Netflix. So we've covered all the Ottos in the world now.
We got one more we can talk about at offensive tackle.
Yes, right. He's going to be tremendous. Don't get me started on Andre Otto, who he might be. I think I'm going to start his fan club for him. But anyway, yeah. So listen, I agree with you, Jerry. I do think that obviously. If they had Darrell Jackson and Braden Fisk and Fabian Lovett and Josh Farmer, Dennis Briggs and Malcolm Ray, I mean, Darrell Jackson, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, Darrell Jackson is a future first-round draft pick. I mean, if he plays up to his potential, I mean, we've seen at times he cannot be blocked in practice. Obviously, we're all hoping because he's been practicing really well that maybe somehow the NCAA comes in at the last minute and says, hey, we made a mistake. We're going to approve your waiver. We'll get into that a little bit later because something just happened for Arizona State with a kid transferring to Colorado late. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit about the fairness and unfairness of NCAA. But listen, I don't even with the subtraction of Jackson out of that rotation, Braden Fisk is a unbelievable football player in his own right, and he will play in the NFL. So it's obviously when you lose a talent like Jackson, it's going to hurt you. But if you got Fisk, Farmer, Briggs, Lovett, and Ray, I feel pretty good. And then, listen, we've heard Mike and Adam talk about it, and we've seen it in action since they've been here. There is continued development during the season, and maybe one of these young guys, we've always liked Tafasi. We've all been enamored with him since the first time we saw him, and maybe he's a guy that continues to develop. Now, I have more concerns in depth at defensive end than I do defensive tackle. Yeah. So, Bob, Kurt, I'll turn the defensive ends to you guys. What do you see? We think that Jared Verse is going to be a first-round selection in the NFL. I think he's out for a huge year. Patrick Payton continues to get better. What are your concerns there, or how do you feel about the defensive end group?
I mean, that top two, you feel great about. I think you feel okay about you. I think I feel better now having watched some other guys behind them this preseason. I think Gilbert Edmond has come on a bit, has grown into his body a bit, definitely looks the part a little more and has performed the part a little more. I think the same for Byron Turner. Byron Turner has always impressed me when he's been healthy. His thing is he missed extended stretches of both of his first two seasons with injuries that kind of kept him from being able to even have a chance to break into the rotation. But I think he's a guy who I'm looking at now. And I think, the wild card there, obviously the Darrell Jackson of it all hurts things. And we'll see kind of what Fabian Lovett play-wise is able to give you play count-wise, especially to start the season, because we can talk about now, Mike talked about kind of was on a bit of a delayed timeline, is ramping up now. But depending on what the defensive tackle room looks like, the wild card is how much can you move Braden Fisk to that outside role in a three-down lineman type thing. They might do some on third down. That is a game changer. I think you're going to see a lot of Verse and Payton. I think I'm curious to see how things play out, because the truth is, beyond those four, it does become more of a question for me. And even then, it feels like it's two real proven guys you feel good about and two guys who you're like, I think they're ready, but I haven't seen it yet.
I agree. Bob?
So I think there's a storyline with the defense overall. You feel really good about the starting 11. You start to have some question marks about some of those twos. And they haven't shown it enough. You don't know that they're dependable on Saturdays. You think they could be. We think Gilbert Edmond could be really good, a guy with SEC experience. Yep. We think Byron Turner is healthy, finally, after fighting it for years, and could be a guy who gives you some good snaps out there. We don't know what Dante Anderson can provide. Jaden Jones coming off the knee. There are a lot of candidates. How many are dependable candidates at defensive end is, I think, the question. And we can go through all the groups. I do think that's a question at linebacker.
Yep.
We do think it's a question in the defensive backfield. We're going to be looking at a lot of freshmen in the defensive backfield, and there's some really good ones there, right? But this is kind of the theme throughout the defense at all the levels.
Yeah, and I think and I agree with you guys. I think that, but we've talked about this before, and I know Jerry's a big fan of the youth in the secondary, and he should be. The guys have potential to be really good players. Whether we're talking about Hussey, Barker, Kirkland, Edwin Joseph. I mean, to go along with the Knowles and the Dents of the world, Fentrell Cypress. I think we feel better about corners, the backups there at corner than we do at safety. Now, I do think that despite their untapped potential and unlimited potential that we've seen in some of these guys, they are freshmen. They are true freshmen. There are some really good play callers that understand how to create mismatches, and we've seen some blown coverages in practice, and we've seen some misalignments in practice, and so that's where my concern is in the back seven, not only at the safeties and corners, but at linebacker. You know, how good can this? I believe Jerry's right. I think we don't give Kalen DeLoach enough credit. I think he's got a chance to be an above-average linebacker in ACC. I think Bethune is solid. I think Lundy will fill a role. I don't feel good about anybody behind those three. We heard a lot about Omar. We'll see how that pans out. The other guys are true freshmen. Or Brian Courtney, who has moved over from tight end, is playing his first reps, and we've seen AJ Cottrell, a walk-on, get a lot of snaps in camp as well. So I don't feel as good about the linebackers as Jerry does, but and hopefully I'm wrong. I love being wrong when I'm critical of some of these position groups, and I would love to be wrong. And I hope Omar Graham, who they raved about coming out of spring, plays up to that potential. But right now, I only see Florida State as three linebackers deep, and we'll see how that goes through the season. But just your thoughts on the linebackers, Bob and Kurt, and then Mark, I want to get your balcony view of the defense.
Yeah, I think there's candidates. I mean, we saw Justin Pryor have some really good moments, and you start to question, how can a guy get it that quickly? Because he's only been on campus, I mean, literally like a month. And then are you really going to throw him out there? Do you have that confidence in him? A lot of excitement about Blake Nicholson, but again, this is a guy who didn't enroll early, played a lot of offense in high school. How much is he acclimated truly to where the coaches want to be on defense? I think we all like Omar Graham. We think he's really a good option there, kind of Tatum Bethune-like. But yes, they do need to develop some of those younger options at linebacker. Again, this is a short-term issue. We talked a lot about this. It's a short-term 2023 issue. It's a long-term develop for the future 2024 issue, especially at linebacker. You've got to develop some of these younger kids.
All right, Mark, you've, again, read all the reports, seen all the videos, heard what Mike's had to say, Adam, JP. What does all the conversation about the defense mean to you?
Well, it means we need to pump the brakes on this being a playoff team right now, to me. Because what separates Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State is the depth, especially on defense, especially on the 7, right? And so the fact that that's where our concern is, there's probably something to it, right? And so, we could get really lucky and nobody really get hurt, and all those guys play 600-700 snaps all year, but the chances are that's probably not going to happen. And we know all too well, especially the last couple of years, we get a few key guys hurt in a few key areas, and we struggle, right? And so we're just not at that point yet. Now, all these guys are really talented. We talked about the secondary. Man, we got a lot of skill and talent in the secondary, but they haven't played any football. They haven't had to line up. They haven't had to make the plays. They haven't had to make checks. They haven't had to play in loud stadiums, So, and they may do great, but, chances are, there's going to be some hiccups along the way, and that's just the way it is. And, look, we're just not at that level yet. We're getting there. And the way recruiting's going and the way the talent that we have, we just got to keep building on it. But just to think that we're Georgia, right, is crazy, in terms of skill or in terms of, experience and skill, right?
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to be myopic because we only see one team, right? I think we do, even as fair and objective as we try to be, I think sometimes we have a tendency to get myopic. We know fans do. They're reading about Florida State. They're not reading about anybody else. And, some of these college football playoff picks, we're taking the words of somebody that's never seen Florida State or anybody else practice this fall. So, yeah, they are I agree, Mark, to some extent that, maybe we need to tamper down what are already high expectations. It should still be high, even if watered down just a little bit. All right, so before we get out, we're all Florida State grads. We know special teams are important, so we must not forget the special teams. The punters have looked outstanding, both Mastromanno and Max, I think's his name. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Mac 43 has got a cannon just like Alex. And then we've seen a kicking competition between Keltner and Fitzgerald, Fitz something, 88, 98. Those are the two kids competing for kicker. Bob, y'all track them on a daily basis. Bob, Kurt, what are your thoughts on special teams? We know as a whole they work on them. We also think we may see some big plays in the punt return game.
I think Coach Norvell's still going to go for it on fourth down. Is part of the answer to this whole kicking equation. He loves the analytics. He knows how the ball game is played. You've got to outscore the opponent. So that's the answer to kicker. Which one is more consistent? Which one does he trust? I still think that's up for grabs. I'm not sure we're going to get a clear answer on Monday. I'm expecting Pat and Orr at that position for kicker.
There's going to be oars all over the place on that depth chart.
It's a good problem, though. I mean, truthfully, I think we watched them in the spring. And in the spring, I don't think Tyler Keltner or Ryan Fitzgerald blew us away. I think it was a competition in that neither was especially good. They've both been pretty good in the fall camp. I mean, they both. I'm not sure either of them has the leg where they're going to be out there trying 50-yard field goals. But they both, out to about 42, 43 yards, been, I would say, pretty solid and hit their field goals at a pretty high rate. The punt returners you talked about, I think Florida State's going to miss, I'll say, Micah Pittman's catching ability to field punts. There've been some muffs here and there as they're working to find a new guy. Kind of need to be honest, but I think the guys they have back there have a chance to, when they catch the ball, which I think will happen a lot, do more with it. I think Micah was great at catching the ball and wasn't the most explosive playmaker at the punt returner. I think, if it's Keon Coleman back there, if it's Vandravius Joseph back there, if it's Lawrence Toafili back there, those are three guys who are shifty, probably three of the more shifty guys on the team. And I think can do some things back there as punt returners.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be fascinating to see. We know special teams will play, as it usually does, a role in big games. We saw it at LSU last year. We'll likely see it in games like Miami, Clemson, Florida. There's going to be some games where obviously the special teams are going to be the big plays there will make a huge difference in the game. But I did not, as we all know, being from Florida State, did not want to bypass special teams before we move on to the next segment. And we will obviously, guys, we're only 9 minutes behind, which is pretty good for us. So, but all right, so let's do some quick hitter things. Obviously, we had talked about doing a preseason poll, and as a staff, we did not do that, but we do know where Florida State stacks up in the rankings. The AP, they're ranked 8th, and in the coaches poll, they are ranked 8th. If you had and maybe y'all do, I don't know. But if you had a vote in the AP poll, any poll, we're doing the Osceola poll here. Where would you put Florida State in your Osceola top 25? And Bob, I'll start with you. Put you on the hot seat first.
Yeah, I think part of it to me is where'd you finish last year and who did you bring back? I'm not so wild about these preseason polls or the Heisman lists, but it comes down to you were a top 10 team last year. You bring back all these playmakers, talent retention is what it's all about for Mike Norvell and Derek Ray. That's why I think top 10 is warranted for Florida State.
All right, so you don't have a specific number you wouldn't have. I've seen as high as 3 and as low as 15. Would you want to put a number on it?
3 feels really high. Let's be honest.
That's Brett McMurphy.
Brett McMurphy had him there. Yeah.
No, I think about 8 is fair, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they're right about where they should be. The truth is, they have the game week 1 where if they beat LSU, they're probably going to take LSU's spot and be about 5th, maybe even 4th in that neighborhood. I don't really get LSU being a bit higher. To me, they seem toss-ups. To me, they should be kind of right by each other in the polls. But again, that will be sorted out next Sunday night, and it doesn't matter. It won't affect the game at all what they're ranked going in.
Jared?
Yeah, I thought this. I got them at 8, and I was a little surprised they put Florida State ahead of Clemson. And to Kurt's point, we don't know about LSU, and I don't know about the other teams ranked above us right now. Penn State, USC. Is Florida State better than them?
I wouldn't have put USC in front of them, but I might have put Washington in front of them.
Yeah.
Defense still optional in the Coliseum, as we saw last night.
Yes, yeah. So, I think they're about right. Mark, where would you put them? I think they're about 8 to 10 is about where they should have started.
Yeah, I mean, it's eight's good. It'll sort itself out. I don't get too worked up over this stuff.
No, I don't either. I'm just for fun. We're just a couple guys talking football.
Right.
That's what everybody else is talking about. All right. So we all think they're ranked about where they should be, within a plus or minus of 1 or 2 spots. And I agree with Kurt. If they were to go into Camping World Stadium and beat LSU, you're probably going to see them switch positions. I think it's about the only game that weekend outside of a huge upset where you would see a swing in the big swing in the rankings. It's definitely the biggest game of the weekend this upcoming weekend. But all right, so the question everybody wants to know is this team going to play in the ACC championship game? And Jerry, I'll let you start. Are we going to Charlotte in December?
Yeah, I would say that should be your expectation if you're a coach on the staff. You've got Clemson in your headlights, and so if you beat Clemson, or if you finish in the top 2 and you get to face Clemson in the ACC championship game, that should be the goal for this football team.
It should be the goal, but are they going to the ACC championship game?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Kurt?
I think so. I think they are the 2 classes of the ACC. To steal Bob's point, that Bob brought this up a few weeks ago, and I think it's valid, Florida State has the least questions, even less than Clemson. It's understandable why Clemson was picked to win the ACC. There's the sense of, I want to see Florida State do it. I don't want to just go off the hype. I want to see it happen because they haven't beaten Clemson since 2014. But I think whether they beat Clemson or not, it's the whole divisionless thing makes things weird because, who knows what happens if Florida State's 6-2 in the ACC. But I think they're there.
6-2 in the ACC. We're going to be having a lot of conversations. They may be. Yeah, you're right, because I got a prediction later that might put that into play. Mark, ACC championship game, yes or no?
Yeah, and I'll quote Reese Davis on this one. I listened to his podcast not too long ago. If not now, when? You got a senior quarterback. You have a senior offensive line. You've got a first-round draft pick at defensive end. You got a really talented secondary. You've got skill at the yin yang. If not now, when?
Well, Reese is suffering from recency bias because I'm pretty sure when he was in school, Alabama was about average and Florida State was kicking everybody's ass.
I think that because his point was that this is.
Yeah, I know.
We're a senior laden team. Our best players are older players, and our leadership is our best players, and that's it. Yeah, we got to get. We're going to the championship game.
Yep. Bob, ACC championship game.
Yeah, to my point about the fewest questions in a divisionless format, even if you lose to Clemson, you have time to make it up over the length of your schedule. What Florida State has is continuity on the roster, continuity on the coaching staff with the coordinators. You look at every other ACC school that's really in contention. You look at North Carolina, Miami, Pitt, Clemson. Everybody's got at least one new coordinator. Everybody's got a major question from North Carolina's defense to how is Phil Jerkovich going to be at Pitt in his hometown at quarterback. Pitt's the wild card here, right? Yep. That game up in November, Florida State Pitt could be really pivotal for all this. But honestly, right now, it feels like Florida State and Clemson will be facing off for a second time up in Charlotte.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jordan Travis may be the best college quarterback in the ACC. I don't know if he's quite the pro prospect that Derek May is. I think Jordan Travis is going to play in the NFL. I think he will be drafted But I do think that he is the best college quarterback in the ACC. I think he's the most dynamic playmaker in the ACC, surrounded by really good skill players. And I think that in some games, the offense will win the day for Florida State and should win it enough that they end up against Clemson, Louisville, NC State, Pitt, whoever. I think they'll end up in an ACC championship game. So we're all as operations manager, I will book our hotel rooms in Charlotte as soon as we get off of here, because apparently we are going to Charlotte in December. I'm fired up for it. We'll get 14 ball games instead of 13. All right, floor to ceiling, guys. Now I had this conversation in a bar the other night with a group of friends, and just fascinating the amount of opinions you get. But we'll get into a little bit of the schedule right after this, so you can expound on it. But just a quick question, and Mark, I'm going to start with you. Worst case scenario regular season record, best case scenario regular season record.
8-4, 12-0.
All right, so 8-4, 12-0. Jerry.
7-5, 12-0.
Wow, we're going to definitely get into 7-5 when we get to the schedule with Jerry. Kurt.
I'm gonna go 8-4 and 12-0. I'm agreeing with Mark.
Wow, I'm gonna be the eternal optimist out of this group.
I was almost 9-3. If you want me to say 9-3,
no, I want you to say what you want to say.
9-3.
Well,
I was thinking 9-3 before Salah. I got talked down by the other two. I'll go 9-3.
Y'all's plus minus race margins are huge. I mean, y'all got you guys got +4. Jerry's got +5.
Are we working with the assumption Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt?
Ron DeSantis is going to want y'all to start working for his polling team, because he will be much, much closer to Donald Trump. I'm going to hire you guys the next time I'm taking a popularity poll. All right, Bob, what do you have?
Okay, so here's the 8-4 answer. I think for me is your toughest games are away from Tallahassee. You're going to play in Orlando against LSU. You're going to play at Clemson. You're going to play at Pitt. That's where the 8-4 scenario, I think, comes in, just if you stumble away from Tallahassee, the friendly confines. But I agree, 12-0 is on the table.
See, what's got me worried is that we're done with our ACC schedule, right? When we go into Miami, North Alabama, and Florida, we could already be in the championship game when we hit those 3 games, and I don't know how do you react to that? So losing one of those, maybe losing another one, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't have as big a plus or minus ratio as you guys do. I got it. When we're getting to the schedule, I'm going to ask Jerry and you guys how we get to 7-5 and 8-4 with this schedule. And I look for a great explanation. But I am usually the most conservative member of this group when it comes to expectations. I have them 9-3 floor, 11-1 ceiling. It is almost impossible to go 12-0. It doesn't happen very much. There is Coach Bowden used to tell Mark, it's hard to get up for 12 weeks, let alone 13, let alone 14. But long story short, I think 11-1, the top regular season record, 9-3, as bad as it should get. If 8-4, 7-5 come into play, I think we're going to have some very interesting discussions in December.
The question was ceiling, right? Our
ceiling,
roster, our talent. We can win every game we play.
If they go 4-0, people start talking 12-0. That is 100%. Like if they open 4-0, that becomes the conversation. Fair or not?
For the first time in a long time,
you
have a chance to win every game we step on the field.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's very hard to go 12-0.
I agree it's hard, but that wasn't the question.
That's why I think it's 11-1. I think it's very few teams go 12-0. So I think. Yeah, so I think it's I love agreeing to disagree. It's what makes these things fun. But I cannot believe I've heard 8-4 and 7-5. I'm just shocked. I am usually the black cloud in this group. I just feel like the tropical storm Idalia got to Florida, Tallahassee 2 days early.
Listen,
I'm gonna start sandbagging my house now.
Hey Pat, if you want to talk about a floor means it can happen.
Oh, well, listen, I thought mine would be the bottom. I thought I would be the pessimist of the group.
You were the only one who said 12-0 is not possible.
That is true. All right. So I kept the script. All right. So this was supposed to be a really short conversation as I just put the schedule up for the year. But now I have a lot more questions. We're probably going to go a little bit over. All right. Outside of LSU and Clemson, who I'm assuming y'all think are the two toughest opponents on Florida State, who is the game outside of those, the game one that you're most concerned about heading into the season? Bob.
I think without a doubt, Pitt. It's just because of where that team could be by November and where the weather could be in November.
Pat Narduzzi's defenses, man. Like we don't know what to make of that offense. We don't. Phil Jurkovich did not look great all the time in his Boston College career, but that's also, I mean, beyond that, I think that's the toughest 2-game stretch they play. Who you surround LSU and Clemson with, I think at Wake and at Pitt is the toughest 2-game stretch in the entire regular season schedule.
All right, so you got Wake or Pitt, Kurt?
Pitt.
Okay,
I agree.
All right, Jerry.
Well, I'm going to take a page out of the Mike Norville book and say the next game is most important.
You're not doing that's not.
You don't have to do coach speak, Jerry. You're not a coach.
You have 10 teams to choose from. Which of those 10 concerns you the most outside of LSU and Clemson?
I would say Pitt, but Pitt for the obvious reasons that they stated. But you got two in-state rivals too. You got Miami, who I will never take lightly, never. And of course, you got to go to Florida. Yep. So there's 5 challenging games on this schedule.
I think there's probably going to be more than 5, but that's fine. But you're sticking out of but you would say Pitt out of Pitt, Miami, Florida.
Now I'm gonna pick Miami.
Jerry's just picked all 10 teams Florida State plays.
North Alabama.
Hey, don't undersell FCS teams from Northern Alabama coming into Doak Campbell Stadium.
They won Jacksonville State won their FBS.
They should have said them. Yeah, well, wait till we get to game week.
Well, you guys already picked Pitt, so I'm not going to pick.
It's good for some variety. It's good for some variety.
Mark, who are you going to pick? Who will you pick, Mark?
The correct answer is at Florida.
Mark is absolutely right.
That would be my second pick.
Mark is absolutely right.
That's all. Hey, that's the one.
Florida. Especially since every person that buys a season ticket to Florida State already assumes that game is over before the team even gets to Gainesville. They're not even being brought up by anybody as a challenge. We saw what Florida State did in Mike's second year down there in Gainesville, where they should not have even been close to beating Florida and almost did. It's amazing how quickly we forget when the shoe was on the other foot. And we got everybody in Tallahassee talking about what a disappointing team Florida, and Billy Napier's going to get fired and all this bull crap in the second year. Listen, that's the game that worries me. I'm with you, Mark. Florida, I agree with you guys. Pitt's going to be a tough game, but Florida's one that worries me the most. Now, what I really got to figure out is how Jerry's going to get to 7-5. I don't yet. So, Jerry, I want you to explain yourself.
We named them. You're not taking Miami seriously, right?
I am. I'm just saying that I've taken Florida.
Fine.
I think that we're understating.
You got Florida. You got Florida. You got LSU. You got Clemson. You got Pitt, and you got Miami. That's 5.
Okay.
At least you beat Wake Forest. At least you end that losing streak.
All right. Well, we got plenty of time. We're going to come back. We're going to have another Seminole Sidelines. Revisit.
Then we can go to 6-6.
Oh my God!
No. Is this with Jordan Travis?
Of course, if you have an injury, you could easily.
No, but I'm saying
that's my point. We have real short memories. We lost one defensive lineman, lost 3 games last year, right? What if we lose 2? What if we lose?
We have gotten to Armageddon.
Not. But
all right. So if Jordan Travis stays healthy, we don't think they'll go 6-6. All right. Let's end that conversation.
The question
this battle can rage on, and we got plenty of time to talk about it. All right. So we all think Jordan Travis is a legit Heisman Trophy candidate. We think there's no way he's going to New York City if this team is 6-6, 7-5, or 8-4. Probably not even 9-3. But and I misspelled 2 wrong on my graphic. God, it's all right. So I apologize to our viewers that can read.
Different education.
It's been I went to 3 schools in college, and I entered the portal before there was a portal,
Right?
And stayed in it as long as I could, like some players in the NCAA. All right, so Heisman Trophy. Let's real quick. Will we see Johnny Wilson, Jordan Travis in New York City in December? Just yes or no?
Yes.
In my prediction story today, I said yes. I think he checks a lot of the boxes.
I was writing this, so I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing. Well,
Yes, because I think Florida State will be one of the top teams in the ACC, and that's going to put one of the best players in the conference up there.
All right, Mark.
No.
Debbie Downer.
No, wow. All right.
Debbie Downer.
All right, I'm going yes. I think he's one of the best college football players. I think he's the best number 13 in college football. So that says a lot right there. I think he'll have a better season than Caleb Williams. I think that if Florida State goes 10-2 and gets to the ACC championship game, Jordan Travis is there. All right, so we know that Florida State is going to rotate tight ends like crazy. We know they're going to rotate receivers like crazy, running backs like crazy. Where we normally do not see players rotated in and out is offensive line. We've heard they're 8 to 10 deep. I tend to lean more towards 8 than 10 as we've gotten majority of the way through camp. But Kurt, if you were filling out, and you don't have to necessarily put them at position, but who's your starting 5?
I'm going Bless Harris, Jeremiah Byers at tackles. I'm going Darius Washington, Dimitri Emmanuel at guards, and Maury Smith is the given at center.
Bob?
Oh boy, I think I'm close to where Kurt is. I'm kind of mapping it out here on the screen. I'm going to go left to right. Rob Scott. I know Darius Washington can play everywhere, but I'm going to put him at a guard spot. Maurice Smith, Dimitri Emmanuel, Jeremiah Byers. But this is a great discussion. We could not have had this discussion 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago.
Music to Mark's ears, I'm sure.
Jerry?
All right, I like Maurice Smith at center, Jonathan Byers at one tackle, Bless Harris at the other, Dimitri Emmanuel at guard, and maybe Casey Roddick at the other guard.
Right.
And yep, that's fine.
I think I would go with Bless Harris, but I think Robert Scott is going to start over Bless Harris. I would go Jeremiah Byers at the other tackle, Darius Washington at one guard, Dimitri Emmanuel at the other, Maurice Smith at center. So we're all kind of in agreement there. That would be my starting 5. I think there's a drop. I think you've got 3 starting quality tackles, whether you're running in the run game or the pass game. I think depth at guard is good in the run game. I don't trust it in the pass protection game. I think you may see a guy like Jalen Early continue to get better during camp. He's a guy that would not surprise me if we see him get some reps. But that would be my starting 5. Mark, do you want to expound on this, or you feel like you needed to see practice to have an opinion on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen these guys like you have.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I'll refrain from now.
All right, another quick hitter, portal power on offense. Who's going to make the biggest impact? Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, Jeremiah Byers, Kyle Morlock, or Casey Roddick? Bob, I'll let you start. Well, Kurt looks like he's ready to go. Kurt, go.
I know you've got a love of Jeremiah Byers, Pat, but I have a love of Keon Coleman after however many practices we've seen. The guy is really, really, really good.
Yeah, no, Keon came here to be a one and done, head to the NFL type guy. He has looked like that. There are ways in which, it's crazy to say the season Johnny Wilson just had. There are ways in which he's kind of a more well-rounded receiver than Johnny. He catches the ball a little more consistently, dare I say.
I don't think it's close between those two. I agree with Kurt. I agree. Jerry, who you got?
Coleman. I got Coleman.
All right, I love the offensive line, but I'm not blind. It's Keon Coleman.
All right, well, the question was who will have the most impact, right?
Yeah.
I think Coleman will make a lot of plays, probably score a lot of touchdowns, but I think Jeremiah Byers will deliver an attitude and physical mentality that will carry through the whole offense. So when you talk about impact and attitude, I think it's Byers.
All right.
He
I
talks
like
the
your
most
pick.
with Jared Verse going into practice.
Yeah.
Jared Verse is always talking, and he is the offensive player who probably gives it back to him the most.
Yeah,
Well,
he's scared.
interesting because I saw on ACC Media Days, I think it was, that they interviewed Verse and he had brought up Byers.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, the one guy that I go back to back with the most is Byers. He makes me better," and that says a lot.
All right, portal power on defense. Who's going to make them? This is actually an interesting story. I never thought Grier would be on this list, but he is. Braden Fisk, Fintrell Cypress, Gilbert Edmond, Justin Crier.
Fisk.
That's an easy one.
Mark.
Yeah, Fisk. I mean, depth.
Bob.
I think Fisk is the obvious and easy answer, but let's not eliminate the shutdown corner aspect of a Fentrell Cypress as a 1A.
And the fact that he allowed you to move Knowles back to safety.
Yeah, I was going to say Cypress to me. I mean, he's the guy who was a first-team All-ACC corner last year, and people don't always have the best. Sometimes interceptions and all goes too much into voting for that, but he has backed up what we thought he was getting. I mean, he's kind of gotten lost because we've liked some of the other guys who've made impressions this preseason and cornerback.
I am torn, and I am going to go with Fisk because of the fact that there is no Darrell Jackson, and I think that right now there's no Darrell Jackson. And listen, I think he has exceeded expectation as much as Keon Coleman has at wide receiver. I think Braden has exceeded expectation coming in at defensive tackle, and Lord knows with the lack of depth at linebacker, they need some guys that can make some plays up front and keep those guys off the tacklers. All right, so we kind of did this in a written article where we had surprise player of the year, but breakout player of the year on offense or defense. Bob, who's your breakout player on offense and who's your breakout player on defense?
Oh boy! So if I'm not taking a guy like a Keon Coleman, I still think a tight end like a Jaheim Bell is just going to have a fantastic year. I mean, are we talking about like a freshman breakout?
No, you get to pick your freshman next. This is just anybody that you think is going to exceed what we thought coming into the season. And somebody, it can't be Keon. We've all talked about Keon.
Yeah. We talked about this, I think, a week or so ago. The improvement in the tight end group, just in general, the upgrade button was hit in a dramatic way. And let's not forget Marquiston Douglas, what he can do too. But you bring up Jaheim Bell. I think Kyle Morlock might be that 2-year guy. What we see from him in 2024 will be better. But I'd go with Jaheim Bell.
Okay, Kurt.
I mean, I'm gonna throw a freshman out there, and as a guy who's skeptical.
Your freshman's next. Your freshman's next.
I'm gonna throw Destin Hill.
Okay, all right. Well, so is it gonna be your freshman and your breakout start on offense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I was skeptical. I think I remember talking with Bob back in the preseason about he hasn't played football in almost 3 years. Maybe he can be a punt returner. Maybe that's a role you can find for him year one. No, he's going to probably play against LSU. I mean, he has just day in and day out made plays. It's been remarkable to watch, and a pretty impressive interview. We talked to him last night too.
Jarrett?
I got Byers on offense. I think he'll be the breakout player that will surprise our fans.
All right. I'm going Biscuit. I think Biscuit has had his best fall camp. He is going to insert himself into the passing game. I think a lot of people thought he would get left out. We've seen him make play after play in the passing game in practice. He offers a physicality that the other two tight ends do not in the run game, and I think he's going to have his best year as a Seminole this year. I think he's got a chance to have we won't see it necessarily in the stat page all the time, but I think he has a chance to have a breakout season and be the best end blocker Florida State's had at tight end in some time, and he will surprise people in the passing game. And we're going to have a flattened Biscuit meter during the season for when he runs over defensive backs after catching passes. Mark.
I mean, I was going to say Destin Hill. I heard that interview too. He's got a good head on his shoulder, sounds like.
All right. Yeah, he does. They think he's good. Defense. Who you got on defense? Breakout player on defense. Not a freshman. We got freshmen coming up next. I'm glad y'all read the rundown. Thanks for that.
I did.
All right. I know. And they could be one and the same. All right, Bob. Who's your breakout star on defense?
I think is it wrong to say that Kalen DeLoach is the breakout just because he's been around so long? I think you almost need him to have an all ACC type of year. Is that fair?
Yes, and I don't think he's had that year yet.
Okay.
Yep. All right, Kurt.
Azarie Thomas, I'm throwing in there. I've been really impressed with him this preseason. They put him against Johnny a lot in coverage, and he has held his own against a really impressive and strong and physical receiver. I think he's ready to break out.
Mark?
Well, not having seen practice, I'm just going to go on. This guy seemed to just have a knack for making plays, and having to lose Jamie Robinson, I think Shiny Bell will have a breakout year.
Jerry?
I got Fisk.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with Gilbert Edmond.
I considered him.
They need a third guy. They've used him in all kind of ways at South Carolina. He's very athletic. I think I wanted to go with Omar Graham, but I didn't. But I'll go with Gilbert Edmond. They need Omar to break out. There's no doubt about that. All right, so we've got our breakout. All right, so fresh faces and new places. Who is your breakout freshman? Who's the freshman that will contribute significantly? One on offense, one on defense.
Yeah, I'm still going
Bob?
Destin Hill. You know, I'll take this one. I didn't expect Destin Hill to be this good, this soon, this polished, this hard of a worker. I think that's an easy one.
I think you can make a case truthfully for Vandravius Jacobs to fit in the same mold. He was, I feel like, for a freshman, dominant in the spring and has carried that over into the fall. I think both those guys have a chance to play right away. I mean, go back to my prediction story. I said the freshmen are combining for 600 receiving yards this year, all combined.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'll go with Destin Hill.
All right. Mark?
I mean, Destin Hill. I mean, that's who I said on mine.
I'm going with All Day Dre with Kurt. I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of since.
And Heike Williams has come on too. You can throw him in the mix.
Not ready to do that yet. We'll see.
I mean, my second one was Julian Armella. I think that guy. I think he'll play some. I think that guy's. He's got some talent. He's got an attitude. I could see him getting some time and then slowly rising through the ranks. I mean, maybe not at the beginning of the year, but watch the end of the year. I bet I can get some time.
Well, and he's not restricted to 4 games anymore. He can play more as a reserve than you're trying to redshirt him and saving him in only 4 games.
Exactly.
All right, defense for breakout freshman, significant playing time, makes a significant contribution to the 1-loss record. We could talk all day about several guys. One guy, one guy. Edwin Joseph. All right, Jerry.
Come back to me in just a second. I want to. I think really Omar's got to he's got to do it. We need him to break out.
Okay.
He's a freshman, and he should be ready. He played in 4 games last year.
Kurt?
Conrad Hussey, position of need safety, and he's a playmaker.
Bob?
I'll just be slightly contrarian. Quindarius Jones, I think, is a guy that we've all really liked throughout the spring and in camp.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Omar because they need him. I think that one of the safeties may outplay him, but I do think one of those freshmen because they're really good potentially. But all right, so we'll go there. All right, so the sack exchange. Who has more sacks this season combined versus Patrick Payton or the rest of the defense? It's a really tricky question with all the new added inside guys. So versus Payton or rest of the defense, Bob?
I think if you can give me Payton and the rest of the defense, I'm going to take that over Verse.
You changed it on the rundown. It was
I
versus
did change it on the rundown because
and
I went back and looked at
the
That's the rundown.
It was unfair. It was an unfair question after I went
right.
back through the rundown.
I think that changes it though, because I think I would have said Verse. I would have said the field against Verse, but I'll take Verse and Payton against everyone else.
Yeah.
Jarrett?
Yeah, Verse and Payton against everybody else.
Mark?
I would say that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hoping Verse gets about 15 sacks, he had 9 last year, right?
Yep.
So you hope he gets about 15. You hope Payton gets, somewhere around 10, 8, 9, 10. That's I'll take this.
That's the easy one.
I'm going rest of defense. So, but I'll get into it later. We got plenty of time to talk about that. Anyway, all right. So next question: will FSU have a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver this year? Kurt, I'll let you start with this one.
Rusher, yes. Receiver, no, because they have so many options.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. Rusher, yes. I think they could have two 800-yard receivers?
Exactly. And maybe three 600-yard guys, it's
All right, Mark.
100% agree with those first two. There'll be some garbage time where some of these guys won't get as much time either, so that will restrict it a little bit.
Jerry?
Yeah, I agree with Mark. That'll be the issue. If this team is as good offensively as you think it is, it'll spread the ball around, and they'll get them off the field and get some younger guys out there. So it's going to be tough to get a 1,000-yard receiver.
I'm going yes. Keon Coleman will have 1,000 yards receiving, and Trey Benson will have 1,000 yards rushing. Woo. So I'm going to step out on that limb. All right. Here's our last question because we're only 11 minutes behind schedule. Who are you picking? And I put down most of the top 25 and some group of 5 people just to give everybody a reminder of who all is involved in this whole scenario. And there could be a surprise team, but who are your college football Final Four in the last year of the 4-team playoff format?
Oh, boy.
I'm going to go with, I'll start it off and make it very, put myself out there. Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Florida State.
Wow, Notre Dame.
Sam Hartman believer over here.
I did not see that one coming. You got repeat yours, Jerry? Repeat yours?
Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State.
Okay. All right. Mark, you want to go? I'll go. I'm going LSU, FSU, Michigan, and I am going to go with Georgia. I'm going to go with 2 teams in the SEC. LSU, FSU, Georgia, Michigan.
I'm going to go. Oh, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I would say Georgia, USC. Because I don't know if there's anybody out there that's going to, I know defense is optional for them, but
they'll look like TCU in the
right.
playoff game.
I said Michigan, and Florida State.
You talked about it earlier, Mark. I agree with you that, I'm not sure Florida State can play that caliber of team, but the schedule lines up where if they win one of LSU Clemson, the path is there.
Well, and I think if they get to the ACC championship game,
and
it's against Clemson, I think Jordan Travis is the best quarterback, and in those matchups, you tend to, in college football these days, you tend to go with the best quarterback.
The question is, if we do, get to the championship game, say we beat LSU, lose to Clemson, play Clemson again, go in as a one-loss team, now that's to me is the scenario.
Okay. All right. So, Bob, are you the last one not to get? You haven't.
No, I haven't gone either.
All right, go, Kurt. Go.
So I'm gonna go not in order. I'm gonna go Michigan. I'm gonna go Washington. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
Well, I like it.
I'm gonna go Florida State, and I'm gonna go Alabama. We're overdue for a Saban revenge tour.
Yeah, I almost went Alabama over Georgia.
I'm expecting this on their quarterback.
But you can't get 2 in from the same side of the conference.
I'd say Tennessee is the one-loss SEC team.
Yeah, they might. I thought about that too.
The Georgia question, Georgia's schedule is bad enough. If they are 12-1 after losing the SEC championship game, do they get left out? Depends on what else is there. They have a weak schedule. You don't think so?
I think the voters are going to give Georgia the shot at the three-peat. I think they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But
all right, so who are your 4, Bob?
I haven't done enough homework in this area, but I'm going to lean Georgia, Florida State, Michigan. I do like Washington, high-flying offense with Michael Penix.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to come back. We were going to do a little LSU, but we've gone an hour and 15 minutes. I think that's long enough. We got all week to talk LSU. We'll be back possibly tomorrow after the 2 Deep is released. And do a little 2 Deep look at Bob. It's potential. We have not decided that. If not back tomorrow, we will certainly be back on Tuesday with another edition of the Seminole Sidelines. Guys, I always enjoy this time of year. I can't wait to get down to Orlando this weekend and fired up for this game. I think we're all fired up about as much as we've been fired up since we rebranded the Osceola 5 seasons ago. We'll all 5 be down there. Mark will be joining us down there. But if you're not a subscriber to the Osceola, please go to floridastate.rivals.com or theosceola.com. We are offering a 60% discount off an annual subscription right now. That deal runs out at, I believe, 5 p.m. tomorrow, Jerry, or midnight tomorrow?
I think midnight tomorrow.
Okay. But it's
but get it in before 5 just to be sure.
Yeah, get it in before midnight tonight. Get it in before midnight tonight.
But what you have to do is you have to enter promo code kickoff 2023.
That's right.
Write that down, or you won't get that discount.
Yeah, so go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Check out our practice reports, our position previews. We'll obviously have a lot of things coming out of Mike Norvell's press conference tomorrow. We'll have our LSU preview later in the week. Obviously, daily reports from practice and player interviews. But please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com before Monday at 5 and sign up now for an annual subscription with promo code KICKOFF 2023. It knocks your price down from $99 to $39, and we think you'll enjoy the coverage. And, of course, join us each Sunday throughout the season for our Seminole Sidelines game review show. We'll have either all 5 of us or a certain number of us here each week, and probably some more former players as well. But we appreciate you joining in today and watching our show or listening to our show. And listen, we hope you're as excited for Florida State's football season as we are, and we will see everyone on Tuesday. Have a great night, and thanks for joining us.
Go Noles.
That's right. We got him back.